I'll tell you what I'm going to do in dealing with all this. Rather than get into the specifics of what happened, get into the weeds on the executive order and the Obama-appointed Clinton-donating federal judge that issued the stay and all of the minutiae, suffice to say that the executive order was legal. It had precedents from the Obama administration. My point, I want to deal with this as we currently sit here today, and that is with the reaction to this, what that all means and what I am desperate for you to understand about this. The first thing that you need to understand, first observation that I need to pass on to you, is if you think all of this outrage and all of these protests are spontaneous and specific to the elements of this executive order, you need to stop thinking that, because that is not what any of this is about. What all of this is about is the preordained, prearranged Democrat Party strategy of unseating Donald Trump and opposing him. And it is nothing more than total resistance to everything. It doesn't matter what it is. There is going to be total resistance to everything. He's going to name his Supreme Court pick tomorrow night. Total resistance. The protests at the airports, bought and paid for by George Soros, pre-arranged. People have been sitting and waiting for the moment to be cued to action. They were not minding their own business, running around, taking care of things and living their lives, and all of a sudden feeling outraged over Trump's executive order. They have been waiting at the starting gate. They have been poised and waiting for marching orders, and the executive order was issued and the marching orders went out. The protests are typical of the way the media does things. The narrative here, the picture being painted, is that every protest is a representation of a majority of thinking in the country, that Trump's election was fraudulent and is an aberration, that a majority of people actually did not elect Trump, and therefore what he's doing does not have the sanction and approval of a majority of Americans because the election and he are illegitimate. The protests are being portrayed as representative of the majority of the people in the country, and not only that, the media portrayal makes it look, as they always do, as though everybody agrees with the line of attack on Trump. And this is designed to suck you in. It's designed to weaken Trump supporters, to have you start questioning your decision to vote for him, to question your support for Trump. It's all part of the plan. It's not specific to this executive order. They have been waiting for the first opportunity to en masse engage, and this is it. And it's to give you an idea of how selective the outrage is. Have you noticed there seems to be far more outrage from the drive-by media and the Democrat Party over Trump's temporary suspension of visas from terrorist hotspots preordained and named by Obama? This is not unprecedented. We've done this before. The 7 countries have been previously named in previous Obama orders and decisions. But the fact that, and the number of people here that have been affected is anywhere from 100 to 300 people, and all of the people who were detained have now been released. And yet, look at the lack of proportion here at the protests and outrage over this. And there seems to be far more outrage from the drive-bys and the Democrat Party over a temporary suspension of visas from terrorist hotspots than there is over Muslim terror attacks in this country. You can have a Muslim terror, San Bernardino. You can have Fort Hood. You can take your pick. The underwear bomber, the Unabomber underwear bomber. It doesn't matter. There's no outrage from the drive. The reaction to an actual terror attack is what? You better not climb down on the Muslim chair. You better not start blaming Islam. You better not. And we're going to create a backlash. We can't create a backlash. Actual terror attacks are met with a yawn in comparison to this manufactured outrage over a temporary executive order. And you know what this temporary executive order really is? I know people have short memories, but these are things that Donald Trump said that he was going to do. These are the exact things that Trump said he was going to do that caused a majority of voters to vote for him. In the Electoral College. There's no surprise here. This is exactly what Trump voters wanted. They voted for Trump specifically. Trump made mention of policies like this many times a day at all of his rallies. There are no surprises here. There's no rabbit out of a hat. There's nothing that should be shocking. Everything that Trump did here is something Trump said he was going to do. Now, aside from the fact that people in Washington are not used to that happening in politics, which is another reason they're off balance and outraged, I think what we have here is a little bit of Trump marketing and PR. Trump says A, B, C, D, he's going to do them. First week in office, he does them, A, B, C, D, and has photo ops to show him signing A, B, C, D, E. The marketing and PR is that Trump does what he says he's going to do. But this is a temporary thing that fulfills a campaign promise, but it doesn't significantly rearrange American policy at all. One of the things I heard people say, this is so ill-timed, there was no advance warning, you didn't even give the relevant organizations and bureaucracies a chance to gin up and get ready for this. Right, okay. So you're going to have a temporary ban from 7 countries, and you announce it, and it's going to be 2 weeks down the road, you're going to implement it. What's going to happen in those 2 weeks? The borders are going to be flooded. Every bad actor and who knows who else is going to do their damnedest to get into the country before it goes into effect. If you're going to do something like this, you have to do it this way. If you're serious about it. And folks, this is not going to stop. I told you, Trump doesn't have anybody but you. He doesn't have the media supporting him like Obama did. He doesn't have the Congress support. Let me tell you the real choke point here and the real weak point, and I've mentioned it a number of times all during the campaign. The real problem Trump has here is not these protesters. The real problem he's going to have is the Republicans in Congress sticking with him. This is the kind of thing that they caved to I don't know how many times. This is the kind of uprising in the media, uprising on the left, that just sends chills down the spines of the average, ordinary Washington Republican, and they cave within seconds to things like this, as McCain and Lindsey Graham predictably and right on schedule have done by coming out and saying they profoundly disagree. This has always been, as far as I'm concerned, the wild card for anything Trump does. And that is the Republican and the Republican leadership in Congress. I've always thought that in the early stages they would hold their tongues, because let me tell you, folks, the Washington establishment, Republican, Democrat, secondary. The establishment's the establishment. And I don't care. I don't care what kind of popularity Trump has. They don't like it in the establishment, in either sector, in either party, in either nook or cranny. The Republicans are kind of under pressure. They've got to go along with it. The voters chose this. The Republican voters wanted this. The Republican voters actively made this happen. So the Republicans going to have to go along with it, but they are holding their fire and keeping their powder dry. And they are going to have to hold their tongues. But the first chance they think they get, that they can get away with breaking with Trump, they're going to do it. This may not be it. Well, it is for McCain and Lindsey Graham, but believe me, that is the major problem I think that Trump has in implementing his agenda. The opposition, the Democrats, a no-brainer. George Soros-funded mass protest, no-brainer. I mean, you know that's going to happen, and I if you can do anything, try to keep it in perspective and understand that it isn't specific. They try to make you think it is. The image is on to make you think that Trump doesn't care about people, doesn't care, and there's a religious test going on there. We always have had a religious test. You know, I went practically losing my voice explaining this all during the campaign, particularly where refugees are concerned. Okay, so we have somebody seeking political asylum let's say, is Ali Sahib Skyhook, and he shows up at JFK and he wants political asylum. The first thing, why do you want asylum? He says, well, I'm from a country where there's a religious war going on. I'm war-torn, I'm strife, and so forth. I need, what country? He names a country. What's the religion? What's the war? We always ask their religion. We always ask this in determining whether or not they're telling us the truth. There's always been religious questions. There have always been religious tests. By the way the media is prepared, Trump only wants Christians, white Christians, to come into the country. And it's so over the top but it's so constant too that it's requires constant vigilance by you to keep all of this in perspective. Everybody just chill here. We're talking between 100 and 300 people in a temporary executive order that I actually believe is PR and market. I'm not trying to insult Trump with this, but he's not an idiot. He campaigned specifically on a number of things, and in the first week in office, he's rat-tat-tat done them. Checked them off the list, showing that he does what he says he's going to do. But this is not a permanent rewrite of American policy. This is not legislation. This does not forever change.